When I was practically cornered into proposing to Ethan Reed, I accidentally saw a message in his group chat that read, "If she ever dares mention marriage, I'll dump her immediately." My finger froze on my phone screen, but instead of feeling heartbroken, I actually perked up a little. Every single girlfriend Ethan had before me received a massive breakup fee, always paid generously after every relationship ended. I've waited for 3 years, and maybe, just maybe, it's finally my turn. In our third year of dating, my mom suddenly called me, urging us to get married. "Sophie Lane, when are you and Ethan planning to tie the knot?" I was irritated and frowned. "He hasn't shown any signs of proposing, Mom." But my mother wouldn't let it go. "Then why don't you take the initiative? You're almost 28. You've spent your youth with him. Do you think your career is more important than marrying a good man? When your dad and I were sick, who arranged your surgery? Ethan. Who invested to save your father's company from collapse? Ethan. You can't let a man like him slip away. Girls need to act when the time is right." After hanging up, I sat on the couch in a trance until Ethan walked in, slid his arms around my waist like everything was perfectly fine, and pulled me back to reality. I looked up into that absurdly handsome face, the one I once obsessed over, and smelled it again. That strong, sweet rose scent that didn't belong to him. I'd caught it on him for 3 days straight now. He used to smell like clean gardenia in the mornings. Not anymore. I lay back on the couch, and he leaned over, his lips nearly brushing mine, breath warm and voice low with desire. Was that kiss not deep enough? I didn't respond. I closed my eyes, not wanting to deal with him, and stopped his hand just as it started sliding down my waist. I was on my period like clockwork every month, but Ethan never paid enough attention to remember. He'd scared, annoyed, and walked off to shower. I pulled my collar together and took a deep breath, glancing around the room until my eyes landed on the phone he'd tossed on the sofa. A notification popped up. One of his guy friends had tagged him. "If you want to dump her, just say the word. I kinda like her type." My heart skipped. I listened to the running water from the shower, then unlocked his phone and opened the group chat. "Why the sudden change, Ethan? You've been dating her for 3 years now." "Yeah, well, she's probably thinking about marriage." "Marriage? No thanks. She's just a time killer to me." "Dude, she asks me about marriage and dumping her on the spot." The chat was full of laughing emojis. I blinked. Instead of heartbreak, I felt a strange sense of relief. My mood lifted like a balloon. After all, every girl before me got a huge severance package. Mom's right. Sometimes women need to take initiative. So, I decided I was going to propose. Not out of love, but because I'd earned my payout. How did I even get here? 3 years ago, Chloe Evansme College Senior and I co-founded a game studio. Ethan was one of the angel investors Chloe brought in. Back then, we were both overly polite, borderline servile, trying to impress the money. I was better at reading faces than Chloe, so naturally, I played the part harder. Ethan mistook my professionalism for romantic pursuit. One night, after a dinner meeting where I blocked all the drinks for him because he can't hold his liquor, he gave me a ride home with Chloe. At a red light, he turned to me with this ridiculous look of arrogance. "You've been chasing me for so long, and I haven't responded. Aren't you tired?" I was a little tipsy and confused. "What?" He smiled like a king addressing a servant. "Don't be shy. A lot of women like me. It's normal." I was about to correct him, to say I wasn't interested, but Chloe pinched my waist hard. Reminder, Ethan was our investor. So I swallowed the protest and kept quiet. That silence sealed my fate. From then on, I became the delusional second female lead trope in a trashy drama. Later that night, after parking in the garage, Ethan casually said, "I've dated many women, but I've always had someone else in my heart. I won't accept you. So give up." He was blunt, but at least he was honest. Chloe, however, had other plans. "It's okay, just go with it. He never dates longer than 3 months. And all his exes got generous breakup checks." I won't lie, I was tempted. His face, his abs, his money, and the fact that my parents were constantly forcing blind dates on me. So I went along with it. I became his fake clingy girlfriend, the kind who smiled through every humiliation. But somehow, 3 years went by, and Ethan still hadn't dumped me. He hadn't cheated either, at least, not openly. Even his so-called white moonlight from Germany hadn't shown up. And to be fair, Ethan was actually a decent boyfriend if you ignored the emotional distance. He handled crises like a pro. Got my mom into surgery during a hospital crunch. Threw money to save my dad's company. Everyone said he was the perfect man, worth my long-standing devotion. But I knew better. This was never about love. After he fell asleep one night, I opened my Amazon app to browse engagement rings. My bank account had nearly 8 figures in it, yet I still hesitated to order a ring that cost $99. But then I remembered the chat, the perfume, the humiliation I'd endured. I closed the app and went to Pinion Mall instead, where I bought a plastic ring for $9.99 and slept like a baby. I chose Ethan's birthday as the proposal date. I planned a small party at his beachside villa. I even messaged all his friends. You're invited to Ethan's birthday party this Saturday. Also, surprise proposal incoming. I told the biggest gossip in the group because I knew he wouldn't keep his mouth shut. That night, Ethan looked uneasy. He paced around me like he wanted to say something, but didn't. I could tell he was hoping I'd bring up marriage, so he could shut it down preemptively. But I wasn't playing that game. Instead, I tiptoed and kissed his cheek. "Honey, you coming to bed?" Ethan stiffened. He'd never turned me down before, but this time he did. Said he was tired. I nodded, disappointed, and went to bed first. 10 minutes later, I heard him rummaging through my vanity. Then his voice drifted from the living room. "I can't find the ring. Are you sure she's going to propose tomorrow?" He sounded annoyed. "If she really dares to force marriage in public, I'll dump her on the spot. Make her cry in front of everyone." I lay back in bed with a content smirk. Saturday came. I picked up the package from the front desk, me $9.99 ring, and headed to the villa.
No flowers.
No gifts. Just vibes. The party was packed. Everyone stared at me with a mix of pity and amusement, like they were waiting for a train wreck. Ethan wore that same conflicted look, like he was dreading the moment. The 8-layer cake came out. I lit the candles and smiled. "Happy birthday, babe. Make a wish." He looked at me with a complicated expression and said, "My biggest wish is to get through this night peacefully." "Tough luck, buddy." I dropped to one knee and pulled out the ring. "Ethan Reed, I love you. Marry me." Chaos. His friends gasped. Some laughed. Ethan froze. Nobody encouraged him. No one said say yes, not even jokingly. I gave the perfect awkward face. Like I was panicking, like I needed saving. But Ethan didn't help me out. He just stared, then chuckled coldly. "Didn't I tell you I had someone else in my heart?" I pretended to hold back tears. "But you dated me for 3 years. Doesn't that mean something?" "I thought you knew. We were just having fun." I trembled, bit my lip, and whispered, "Ethan, what are you saying?" He pushed away the ring I offered. "I'm saying I never loved you. We're done." The plastic ring clattered on the floor. I wiped at invisible tears and begged with my eyes. But Ethan turned away without another word. I stumbled out of the party under 1,000 watching eyes. Red-faced, mascara smudged, absolutely humiliated. But I wasn't crying because I was heartbroken. I was crying because I finally earned my fee. And trust me, I wasn't leaving empty-handed. After storming out of the villa, I didn't look back even once, not when people whispered behind me, not when someone gasped dramatically for effect, not even when I heard one of Ethan's friends mutter, "Damn, that was brutal." I walked straight to my car, mascara probably halfway down my cheeks, but I didn't care. The pepper shrimp at the party was so spicy it stung my lips, or maybe that was just the bitter taste of humiliation. I couldn't tell anymore. All I could think about was how I spent 3 years of my life being the perfect fake girlfriend, the kind that smiled in public, stayed quiet in private, and never once demanded more than he was willing to give. And how did Ethan Reed thank me? By rejecting my proposal in front of his entire social circle, like it was some kind of cruel reality show.
But fine.
If he wanted drama, he'd get it. I went back to the apartment we'd shared for the last 2.5 years and started packing my stuff. The diamond necklace he gave me? In the suitcase. The limited edition designer bag I waited 6 months for? Also in. The Patek Philippe he gifted me on our 2nd anniversary? That too. I wasn't the kind of woman who left things behind to seem dignified. If it was given to me, it was mine, and I wasn't about to make some grand gesture of independence by leaving expensive things just to prove a point. Screw that. I dragged my suitcase toward the front door, only to run right into Ethan, who was just coming home. He looked shocked to see me with my bags. Where are you going? Is the company sending you on a business trip again? He asked casually, as if he hadn't just obliterated my dignity 2 hours earlier. Yeah, I replied smoothly, a long one. He narrowed his eyes, clearly suspicious, but didn't say anything else until I walked past him. Then he grabbed my suitcase and held it in place. Sophie, he said, voice low, about tonight I didn't mean to actually break up with you. I blinked at him. You didn't. He scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. I mean, yeah, I said those things, but I was just trying to make a point. I didn't want to be forced into anything. I tilted my head. So, what? You plan to embarrass me publicly but still keep me on the side? He flinched. I just thought maybe we could keep things how they were. You know, without the pressure. I laughed, loud and bitter. So, no proposal, no love, just keep me as your loyal emotional support toy while you chase your white moonlight?
He winced.
That's not what I meant. I raised a brow. Then tell me, are you going to pay the breakup fee? His face darkened. What did you say? You heard me, I said, arms crossed. All your exes got one after a month. I gave you 3 years. Where's mine? His expression twisted like he'd swallowed a lemon whole. You were with me for money? I shrugged. You never loved me, Ethan. You made that crystal clear. So, what exactly do you think kept me around this long? His eyes widened in disbelief. That's disgusting. So was everything you did, I said calmly, then wheeled my suitcase to the door. Don't forget to transfer the fee. I earned it. I left without another word. 3 days later, I landed in San Francisco and moved into the temporary apartment Chloe had arranged for me. The moment I stepped inside, a notification lit up my phone. A deposit figures. My lips curled into a grin as I stared at the zeros, then laughed so hard I nearly cracked a rib. That night, I Googled, how to be a proper ex-girlfriend. Quora's top answer, treat yourself as if you died. Block his number. Delete his socials. Disappear.
So I did.
Blocked Ethan's number, unfriended him on Instagram, and even unfollowed his gaming company's TikTok. Just as I finished, a notification pinged from a friend's post-Ethan's birthday party video had gone viral. Someone had secretly filmed the whole proposal scene, edited it with dramatic background music, and captioned it, "The most tragic public proposal rejection ever." Comments were ruthless. I was labeled desperate girl, clingy queen, marriage stalker. The hate poured in like lava, with over 1 million views in 48 hours. But weirdly, I wasn't crushed, I was kind of excited. This was viral gold. Chloe called me, breathless with excitement. Sophie, the game's about to launch. The timing is unreal. Your popularity's skyrocketing. I'm being cyberbullied, I reminded her. Sympathy, please? She snorted. You're trending. I'm sending flowers. Also, 1/3 of the saved marketing budget is going to your account. Congrats. Suddenly, I didn't feel so bad. 2 days later, the company posted an internal update online revealing I was leading the launch of our new game and calling me the mastermind behind the most anticipated indie title of the year. Trolls swarmed the account, demanding I be fired. But Chloe waited for the chaos to peak, then dropped the real bomb. Leaked group chat screenshots of Ethan's bro circle, showing they all knew about my proposal in advance and were hyping each other up to watch the train wreck live. The narrative flipped instantly. Public opinion turned, sympathy flooded in, and suddenly I was no longer clingy. I was the humiliated victim of a cruel setup. Then our company reposted a video of Ethan reuniting with Vanessa, more the white moonlight from his pot on the same night as the party. The timing exposed everything. Netizens exploded. They raided Ethan and Vanessa's socials with pitchforks. Trash couple. Scum and homewrecker. Deserve each other. Within days, both of them deactivated their accounts. Ethan got removed from his position as heir by his older brother, and Vanessa? Rumor had it she fled abroad to escape the backlash. Meanwhile, our game hit record pre-installs and exploded on release day. I won. Beautifully. Every slap he thought he dealt me came back tenfold. 3 months into my new life in San Francisco, I was so busy I barely remembered what heartbreak felt like. But one night, I wandered into a bar after work, just to blow off steam, and ended up sitting alone with a gin and tonic. A sweet-looking guy with a baby face approached, trying to flirt. I signed to him intentionally, silent, and he blinked, confused. "Wait, are you mute?" I smiled and nodded. He backed off, embarrassed, muttering something about not wanting to offend. It was kind of fun watching people panic when they thought they made a faux pas. I was a mute, obviously. I just didn't feel like talking. But then another drink landed in front of Maya gin and tonic, just like mine. I looked up and saw someone leaning at the edge of the bar, white shirt half unbuttoned, grin sharp and shameless. Liam Carter. "Rough night?" he asked, raising his glass. I groaned inwardly. "Not you again." He laughed. "Don't be like that. It's fate." Liam Carter, the cocky bastard who once tried to buy me like I was a handbag on sale. We'd first met in college in a swimming class. I was drowning. He dragged me to shore, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Wanna be my girlfriend? I'll pay you." I'd cursed him out then, and every time after that until he moved abroad. But fate had a messed up sense of humor, because somehow he kept popping up. Especially after I started dating Ethan, since Liam was one of his old friends. He always hovered too close, watched too long, smiled too knowingly. And now here he was again in my city, in my bar, with my drink. "Let me guess," I said, eyeing him. "You followed me here?" "Guilty," he said with a shrug. "I only get 2 days off a week. Figured I'd spend them right." I narrowed my eyes. "Do you like me or something?" He grinned, eyes flicking from my face to my legs and back. "Like is a strong word."
But yeah.
"I like your everything." "Charming," I muttered. "You're disgusting." "Maybe," he said, then added with surprising softness, "but I've liked you since the first time you flailed in that pool." I choked on my drink. "Seriously?" "Dead serious." I shook my head and smirked. "You're a damn menace, Liam Carter." He leaned closer. "Then let me be your menace." And, for the first time in months, I didn't say no. Liam Carter was the kind of man who should come with a warning label, may cause whiplash, emotional confusion, and accidental infatuation, and yet there I was, sitting across from him in my apartment in San Francisco, sipping wine like this wasn't the same guy who once offered to pay me to be his girlfriend in college, like this wasn't the same flirtatious menace who slid into my life with zero permission and all the confidence in the world. But here's the thing, I didn't say no, not when he handed me the wine, not when he leaned in closer than necessary, not even when he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Sophie, you're the one I want." And yeah, I rolled my eyes and tried to brush it off, but he kept showing up, 2 days off per week like clockwork, hanging around like an annoyingly loyal golden retriever with a smirk, and somewhere between his ridiculous jokes, late-night takeout, and the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered, I started letting my guard down just a little, not because I was over Ethan, God no, Ethan Reed was a burn mark I'd never fully scrub off, but because Liam made it easy to breathe, easy to laugh, easy to forget that I was the girl who got dumped on camera and turned into a viral meme. And even though I kept telling myself I didn't like him like that, I couldn't deny that I enjoyed the way he hovered around me, the way he always knew what I needed before I even said it, the way he made sure I never felt alone in a city that wasn't mine. And when I finally asked him, half joking, Do you seriously like me? He didn't hesitate, didn't dodge, didn't joke. He just looked at me with that easy confidence and said, "Yeah, I do, and if you give me a shot, I'll never let you regret it." And something inside me clenched, because I wasn't used to men who didn't treat me like an option, and even though I pretended to be chill, to keep things casual, to just enjoy the attention, I knew deep down he was serious, and that terrified me more than anything, because if Liam got too close, if I let him all the way in, there was a chance I might not be able to walk away, and I didn't know if I could survive another Ethan-level heartbreak. But then again, Liam wasn't Ethan, and the more time I spent with him, the more I realized that maybe I was done pretending. I didn't want something real, something that didn't feel like I was constantly auditioning for love. And just when I thought things were finally settling into something good, something simple, the universe decided to stir the pot. Because one afternoon, as I was heading out with my suitcase to return to New York for a company meeting, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in months. Ethan Reed, standing outside the luxury mall in Manhattan, looking as put together as ever, but with a darkness in his eyes I hadn't seen before, and before I could dodge him, he spotted me and immediately zeroed in like a heat-seeking missile, and I knew I was in for it. "Sophie," he said, voice low and familiar. "You're back." As if he had the right to say that, as if we weren't done, as if he hadn't humiliated me in front of everyone and then tried to gaslight me into staying, and I nodded politely, trying to walk past him, but of course he grabbed my wrist, because Ethan never could handle not being in control. "He's not good for you," he said, and I blinked, confused. "Excuse me?" And he continued, "Liam Carter, he's not someone you can build a future with. He's impulsive, reckless, his family would never accept you." And I laughed out loud, because of all the people to be giving relationship advice, Ethan Reed was the last one qualified. "We're not together, Ethan, and even if we were, it's none of your business." I snapped, but he didn't back off. "I just don't want you to get hurt again," he said, pretending to care, pretending he was doing this for me, when we both knew the only person Ethan Reed had ever truly cared about was himself. And before I could spit out a retort, a deep voice cut through the tension. Funny, coming from the guy who broke her heart on her knees, and I turned to see Liam, standing behind me, holding the gift I'd just picked out for his mom's birthday, calm as ever but with a fire in his eyes that made Ethan visibly stiffen. And then Liam did something bold, wrapped an arm around my waist, and looked Ethan dead in the eyes. "She's not your business anymore." And the way he said it, like a challenge, like a declaration, sent a thrill down my spine, and Ethan scoffed. "Wow, Sophie, you really traded down." But Liam didn't flinch, didn't get angry. He just smiled and whispered to me, "You hungry? Let's go home. Mom's waiting." And just like that, he turned us away from Ethan, but not before mouthing the word trash with a smirk that nearly made me snort. And as we walked away, his arms still around me, I felt this strange warmth in my chest, like maybe, just maybe, I'd finally found someone who chose me without conditions, without ego, without using me like a placeholder. And I didn't know if I loved him yet, but I liked him enough to let him try, enough to let myself try. And when we got to the dinner party, his mom hugged me like I was already family, and Liam kept sneaking glances at me like he couldn't believe I was real. And later that night, after everyone left, when we were tangled up in each other in bed, sweaty and breathless and stupidly content, he looked at me and said, "Marry me." Not as a joke, not as a tactic, but as something genuine and messy and real. And I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Are you serious?" I whispered, and he kissed my shoulder and nodded. "Dead serious, Sophie Lane." And I didn't answer right away, didn't scream yes or burst into tears. I just lay there thinking about everything I'd been through, everything I'd lost, and everything I still wanted. And after a long silence, I whispered, "Okay." And just like that, a new chapter began. Not perfect, not fairy tale, but something better, something real. And deep down, I knew this time I wouldn't be the one left crying on the
floor.
The thing about saying yes to a man like Liam Carter is that your life doesn't magically fall into place afterward. It shifts, tilts, starts spinning in unexpected directions you didn't quite prepare for. Like suddenly his parents are sending you gifts, his younger sister is texting you TikToks, and you're being added to a family group chat named Carter Crew, where his aunt sends good morning cat memes unironically. And even though I smiled through it all, deep down I kept wondering how I ended up here, In this place where I was accepted so easily, loved so openly, when just a year ago I was Sophie Lane. The internet's favorite cautionary tale. The woman who got rejected in high definition. But Liam never once looked at me like I was embarrassing or broken. He made me feel like the most unbreakable version of myself. And that scared me a little because what if I screwed it up? What if I wasn't actually built for this kind of love? The healthy kind. The kind that shows up for you every damn day without being asked. But Liam didn't care about my doubts. He just showed up with his too-wide grin and annoyingly perfect timing. And when the company transferred me back to New York after a year in San Francisco, he didn't even flinch, just kissed my forehead and said, "I'll follow when I can." And true to his word, he booked a red-eye every other weekend. Video called every night like it was normal to fall asleep hearing someone else breathe. And I started finding myself falling deeper into the idea of us. Not because he was perfect God, he was infuriating sometimes, but because he was consistent. And in my world, consistency felt more romantic than flowers or poetry. So when I flew home to New York for work and ran into Ethan again, it felt like the universe was testing me, like it was dangling a ghost from my past and daring me to fall for it again. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't the Sophie who let a man walk all over her just because he looked good in a suit. And yet, Ethan couldn't seem to grasp that. Because one afternoon while I was picking out a birthday gift for Liam's mom, he appeared like a glitch in the system, lurking near the store's perfume counter with that familiar, arrogant posture, eyes flicking down to my hands to check if I had a ring on, and I pretended not to see him. I really did, but of course he stepped into my path. Because God forbid Ethan Reed let someone walk away without his approval. "You're alone?" he asked, smug and curious, and I shot him a look. "And that concerns you, why?" He chuckled like it was a joke between us, like we were still tangled in whatever mess he thought we had. "Come on, Sophie, I know Liam, he's not the type to stick." And I rolled my eyes so hard I saw last week. "And you are? You couldn't even stick through a 3-minute proposal." I snapped, but he didn't back down, just took a step closer and said, "I just don't want you to get hurt again." And something inside me cracked, because for the first time, I realized how absurd it was that the man who shattered me thought he could play savior now. "Don't worry about me, Ethan," I said flatly. "I'm not yours to worry about." And that should have been it. But of course, Ethan being Ethan, he had to go one step further. "He's not taking you to his mom's birthday party, is he?" he asked, like he was proud of the scoop, like he'd caught Liam in some big betrayal. And I was about to reply when a familiar deep voice cut in. "Why don't you ask me yourself?" And there was Liam, tall and composed, casually wrapping an arm around me like he did it in his sleep. "Got the gift, babe?" he asked, ignoring Ethan entirely as he took the box from my hands. And then he looked at Ethan with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Pays answery, I mean, Ethan, you've really gotta stop obsessing over things that don't belong to you." And the way he said it made my pulse flutter. Not because he was defending me, but because he said it like a man who knew I was his equal, not his possession. And before Ethan could come up with a retort, Liam leaned down and whispered, "Let's go, the driver's waiting," and walked me out without another glance back. But I could feel Ethan's glare burning into my back like a petty ghost, refusing to be exorcised. And later that night at the dinner, when Liam introduced me to his extended family as the woman I'm going to marry, I saw the way they lit up, the way they welcomed me, and for once, I didn't feel like an outsider auditioning for a role I'd never get. I felt chosen, and not in the desperate, pathetic way I once chased it with Ethan, but in a quiet, certain way, like I was exactly where I was meant to be. So when Liam kissed the top of my head and said, "Don't think I didn't notice that ring you bookmarked last week," I just smiled and whispered, "Maybe I was testing you." And he grinned like the devil and said, "Did I pass?" And I leaned in, lips brushing his ear, and whispered, "Barely." And he laughed so loud his aunt turned to shush us. And later that night, when we were tangled in sheets and soft sighs, he held me like he already knew how to keep me. And I started to believe I could actually build a future with someone who didn't make me bleed to feel loved. But of course, happiness never goes unpunished. And 2 days later, I woke up to a notification ping that the old proposal video had gone viral again. Only this time it wasn't just the video. Someone had leaked the full group chat from Ethan's bro circle, the one where they laughed about me proposing, where Ethan wrote, "I hope she makes a scene so I can finally end it," and the internet exploded again. But now they weren't laughing at me, they were furious for me, because this time the narrative wasn't clingy girl gets dumped, it was powerful woman gets played, and suddenly I was being flooded with support. Women posting their own proposal rejection stories, tagging me with "I said yes to myself." Brands reaching out asking if I'd like to collaborate on empowerment campaigns, and Clomi Wonderfully Savage senior partner called and said, "We're going global, babe, and you're our face." And just like that, I realized that sometimes revenge doesn't need fire or fury. Sometimes it's just success, soft and glittering and undeniable. And when Vanessa Morithan's so-called white moonlight quietly deleted her socials after getting flamed in the comments, and Ethan himself was removed from the Reed family succession in favor of his older brother, I didn't celebrate, didn't post, didn't say a damn word. I just sipped my matcha and smiled, because some victories don't need to be shouted. Theory felt in your bones. And I was finally, gloriously, free. The first 3 months after the Ethan scandal blew up online felt like living inside a surreal fever dream. Only this time, I was the one watching people trip over themselves while I sipped my oat milk latte and watched the chaos unfold with a smirk. And I didn't even have to lift a finger. The internet did the job for me. People who once left crying laughing emojis under my failed proposal video were now reposting my photos with captions like "Queen Energy" and "Justice for Sophie Lane." And meanwhile, Ethan and Vanessa vanished off the grid faster than a failed influencer after a PR nightmare, but I wasn't dwelling on that anymore because my company had just signed its biggest distribution deal ever, and Chloe, who is now basically the chaotic mastermind behind our accidental success, wouldn't stop referring to me as our brand mascot of romantic survival. Which sounded ridiculous until she showed me the quarterly numbers, and then suddenly I was like, yes, I'll gladly be your face of resilience if it means another bonus. And while my schedule was stacked wall-to-wall with media interviews, campaign meetings, and game development deadlines, I still found time to breathe, mostly because Liam made me, literally dragged me out of the office on weekends and forced me to take walks, eat real food, and do outrageous things like laugh or, God forbid, relax. And the more time I spent with him, the more I realized he wasn't the overly confident flirt I used to think he was. Sure, he still made stupid jokes and still acted like I was the sun and the moon wrapped into one sexy package, but he was also careful in the quiet moments. He knew when not to push, when to hold my hand and let me process, when to joke, and when to just let the silence settle between us like a blanket instead of a wall. And I didn't want to admit it at first, but I was starting to fall for him. Not the performative kind of love, not the strategic type where you weigh pros and cons like stocks, but the stupid, inconvenient, real kind, the kind that sneaks in while you're brushing your teeth next to each other or laughing about something dumb on TV and suddenly realizing you don't want this to end, ever. And that was terrifying because I wasn't the type of girl who said forever lightly. I'd been burned before, and hard, so I held that little truth close to my chest and didn't say anything. Not when he kissed my forehead in the morning, not when he fixed the zipper on my dress before a gala. Not even when he looked at me like he'd already decided I was it for him, and everything could have just stayed quietly wonderful if not for a certain petty ghost from the past deciding to reappear in the most Ethan Reed way possible. Be showing up at one of my promotional events uninvited, wearing a smug expression like the months of humiliation, cancellation, and online exile hadn't happened. And when I saw him across the room, my first reaction wasn't heartbreak or fury, it was genuine confusion. Like, what are you even doing here? And before I could signal security, he approached with his hands in his pockets and that signature overconfident tilt of his head. "You look good," he said, like he still had a right to say that, and I just stared at him, unimpressed. "You look unemployed," I replied coolly, and I could tell it hit, because he blinked, then smirked like he had some hidden card to play. "We need to talk," he said, and I tilted my head. "No, you need to walk." But of course, Ethan wasn't good at accepting rejection, even when it was wrapped in public disgrace. "You and Liam, it's not serious, right?" And I laughed, genuinely laughed, like he was a bad actor in a soap I'd stopped watching years ago. "Wow, you really are delusional," I said, and turned to walk away, only for him to grab my wrist again. Why is it always the wrist? Like men have some contract with fate that says they must grip a woman's wrist to assert dominance, and right as I was about to go full scorched earth on him, a familiar voice cut through the crowd, low and dangerous. "Let her go." And there was Liam, calm but pissed, suit impeccable, jaw tight, and Ethan, still clearly lacking any self-preservation instincts, sneered, "What? You think you're better than me?" And Liam didn't even blink, just pulled me gently behind him and said, "No, I know I'm better than you, and so does she." And the way he said it like a fact, like gospel, made something inside me snap into place, like yes, this is what love is supposed to feel like, not fear, not humiliation, not tiptoeing around someone's ego, but safety, certainty. A man who doesn't flinch when someone tries to drag you down but instead plants himself like a shield. And as security finally escorted Ethan out of the venue, I looked at Liam and said the words I'd been holding in for too long. "I love you." And his expression melted into something warm and unguarded and a little stunned. "Yeah," he whispered, like he wasn't sure he heard me right, and I nodded, heart thudding like a drum. "Yeah," and he cupped my face and kissed me like he'd been waiting forever to do it right. And just like that, the crowd, the cameras, the chaos faded into background noise, and I finally felt like I was living in the version of my life where I got to be the main character, not the joke, not the lesson, not the girl who got left behind, but the one who chose her own ending. And later that night, after all the press and the champagne and the dancing, when we were lying in bed and he traced lazy circles on my back, he whispered, "So, what do you think about eloping?" And I turned to him, smiling against his chest. "You serious?" And he grinned, dead serious, like courthouse and takeout serious. And I laughed. "You know I'm a drama queen, right? I want flowers and music and people crying." And he kissed my nose and said, "Then I guess I'll start planning." And just like that, we weren't talking about if anymore. We were talking about when, and it felt easy. It felt earned. It felt like the universe finally decided to stop screwing with me and start handing me the life I deserved, one soft miracle at a time. The thing about happy endings is that no one ever talks about what happens after quiet mornings when you forget to brush your hair. The way we all love isn't always fireworks and perfect lighting, but little things like making sure your charger is plugged in or saving you the last dumpling. And even though Liam and I were finally planning our wedding, I never stopped being Sophie Lane, the girl who once stood in a crowded villa with a plastic ring and a trembling heart. And while everyone else has forgotten about that girl, I haven't, because she's the one who crawled through heartbreak, humiliation, and an internet mob and still showed up for herself anyway. So yeah, even now, with a shiny diamond on my hand and Liam Carter sleeping peacefully beside me, I still remember what it felt like to be disposable, to beg someone to love me when they didn't even see me. And that memory is exactly what makes me savor this version of life, the version where I get to wake up in a city I chose, working a job I built, with a man who loves me out loud, without fear or conditions. And maybe that's the real glow-up, not the Instagram aesthetics or the revenge arc, but the quiet, confident knowing that I never needed to be chosen, I just needed to choose myself. And I did, again and again, even when it hurt, even when it was messy. And now the mess is beautiful, like the way Liam hums when he's brushing his teeth, or the way his mom now sends me soup recipes just in case, or how Chloe finally stopped calling me the breakup girl and switched to the future boss of everything. And look, I'm not saying everything is perfect. I still overthink dumb things. I still flinch when I see Ethan's name pop up in a headline, even though he's basically fallen off the planet now. Last spotted in some obscure podcast trying to talk about emotional manipulation in relationships. As if he wasn't patient zero, but those flinches don't control me anymore. They're just echoes, like background static that fades when Liam reaches for my hand under the dinner table, or when I catch my reflection and see someone I'm actually proud of. And speaking of reflections, there was this moment last week when I was doing a live Q&A for the game studio and someone asked, if you could go back to the day of the proposal, would you still do it? And I paused for a second, smiled, and said, I would, just to remind myself how far I've come, because that's the truth. That moment didn't break me, it built me. And sure, maybe I didn't get the answer I wanted that night, but I got the one I needed. And months later, when Vanessa Moore tried to quietly resurface on social media with a vague apology post, tagging some inspirational quote about finding herself, I didn't even engage. I just double-tapped out of sheer irony and moved on, because karma already did what it had to do. And when Ethan emailed me, like we were business acquaintances, saying he wanted to talk things out and clear the air, I didn't even reply. I forwarded it to Chloe with a subject line, "Dumpster Fire wants a meeting," and she sent back a gif of a woman setting paperwork on fire. So yeah, closure doesn't always look like a tearful reunion. Sometimes it's just indifference wrapped in peace. and I've never felt more at peace than the day Liam and I finalized our wedding plans. Not because it was grand we were doing it our way, small, personal, no influencers or fake tears, but because it felt like reclaiming everything that had once been taken from me. And when the day came, I didn't wear a traditional white dress. I wore champagne silk that shimmered like strength under the sunlight. And when I walked toward Liam, who stood there looking like the personification of stability and temptation in one custom-tailored package, I didn't think about anyone else, not the crowd, not the past, not the what-ifs. I only thought, finally, this. And the vows were messy and emotional and totally us. And when he slipped that ring on my finger, I felt something click, not like ownership, but like partnership, like someone saying, I see you, and meaning all of you, the broken, the brave, the badass parts. And later, when we were back at the small reception, drinking wine and dancing barefoot on a rooftop under string lights, Liam whispered, remember when you said you didn't like dogs? And I laughed, I still don't. And he smirked, you made me your golden retriever, Sophie Lane. And I kissed him because he was right. He followed me city to city, waited for me to heal, held my hair during my lowest nights. And I guess if love is about loyalty, then yeah, I accidentally adopted a 6-foot-tall golden retriever in a suit, and I wasn't mad about it. And months later, when we launched our next game, and it broke every download record in our category, I stood on that stage, looking out at a sea of faces, and said the thing I never thought I'd say with a straight face. I want to thank my ex. And the crowd roared because they all knew, this wasn't about him, it was about the girl who got back up, who made her pain profitable, who turned a viral humiliation into a global win. And as I left the stage, Liam was waiting in the wings, arms open, eyes warm, and I walked right into him like I always did, like home, because no matter where this life takes me next, no matter how many people try to rewrite my story, the truth will always remain. I was never just a girl who got dumped. I was the girl who wrote her own sequel and made it a bestseller.